whether it's Mark in that career for 20 years, or it's all those people in the Quest line, or it's the fact I got a business degree and they didn't talk about leverage and timing, how many of us have ever stopped? You were invited to look at a business tonight. What if you really stopped and said, you know what, I'm going to find an exploding industry, and then I'm going to find the #1 company in that industry, and even if I'm average, how many people agreed you'd probably do pretty well? Look, anybody here know anybody who's not as smart as you are? Who doesn't work as hard as you do, but they make more money? Do you know, anybody know that person? What do you attribute it to? I mean, if they're not as smart and they don't work as hard, but they make a lot more money, and if you don't know them, you know they exist. What do you attribute it to? Folks, it matters. Being at the right place at the right time matters. Being able to start a business that you can create some leverage and you don't have to give up your life matters. I was 7 years out of school, $37,000 in credit card debt, and somebody invited me to this presentation. I was driving this 1987 Volkswagen Jetta that had been hit twice and had a light that stared at the pavement except when I duct taped it to the hood of my car. And somebody invited me, and I was skeptical, you know, like anybody. I go out and I'm looking, and I'm thinking, well, I don't really need an attorney, which I've learned is just one of the most ridiculous statements. What I didn't realize is it wasn't whether I thought I needed an attorney, it was whether, as Dr. Hughes talked about, had I ever been treated unfairly? Had I ever been overcharged for a repair? Ever tried to return a defective product? Had I ever had an insurance company that didn't pay a bill they should have paid? See, those are common everyday things. Those are things I had experienced. But long story short, I went out and I kept an open mind, and I thought, you know what? There's a product that makes sense. It's month to month. There's no contract. I mean, you got to think about this from a business perspective this evening. If you had that product you came up with in your mind, right? Month to month, no contract. People can afford it. They don't know it exists, right? There's no competition. It kind of reminds me of AAA. They left me cold on the side of the road for 2 hours one night in the middle on a trip going from Tennessee to New York. I was so mad. It was freezing, right? I'm thinking, man, I mean, I was furious. They finally picked me up. They towed me like 40 miles. Right? Do you think I canceled AAA after that?
No.
Nope. You know why? Because if I hadn't had AAA, I'd still be sitting on the side of the street. I mean, you with me? I mean, there's nobody else. And it reminds me of prepaid because we got an awesome service, but there is nobody else. So you get to go out, you get to be a business partner, you get to go out and market a service that you can't get anywhere else unless it's through an independent associate in prepaid legal. And when you see what they pay us, right, it's crazy. So, with all that stuff said, listen, I'm going to dive in here. I don't know, like I said, this will be interesting. Am I pushing the right button? The right one? Okay. So, here's what we do in prepaid. We basically do 3 things. And I want you to understand, and I'll tell you how we go about the business. But we basically do 3 simple things. We take that service that Dr. Hughes went through, that month-to-month, no contract, people get it service. We take that service and we market it in 3 major ways. Number 1 is we do a 15-minute presentation. Literally, you can just sit down and tell somebody about our service. Right? I had a gal that I sat with yesterday. She's been in the business a few weeks. She's struggling. She's like, it's not working, and this, that, and another. And, you know, and I said, well, how many people have you sat down and presented the service to? And she's like, well, nobody. They keep telling me they're not interested. And I said, look, do me a favor. She's not been in any sales, doesn't know what she's doing in sales, right? So I said, look, just sit down. Let's make a few phone calls. So we pick up the phone, and we call a few folks who already told her they weren't interested in prepaid. And I'm cool with that. I said, great, let's call them. So we call them, and they said, I'm not interested in prepaid. Now, they don't know anything about prepaid. They didn't get to see what you saw tonight. They don't know anything except she called and asked them, are you interested in prepaid legal? And they said no. Well, I said, listen, would you be willing to do Lois a favor? She needs to practice her presentation. I know you won't be interested, but she just has got to practice. And if you give her some feedback, that'd be super. So she calls me this afternoon. She was so excited, she nearly jumped through the phone. She's like, you know, I called her, I just told them I got to practice, and I went over it, and I just practiced, and I can't believe it, they bought the service. You know, she didn't know. I'm telling you, the first presentation I ever did, or one of the first I ever did in Dallas, Texas, this guy owned a construction business. I was nervous as all get out. I meet him at this coffee shop, and he's sitting there, and at the time in Dallas, it's $25 per air. It's $25 for the whole coverage. Like it's $35.95 right now. But I sat down and he thought it was $25 per area. So I'm not doing a very good presentation, and I get to the third area. And he looks at me and goes, so you mean I can get all of this for only 75 bucks? And I'm thinking, this is gonna work, man. Right? I mean, I was new. I'm driving my Jetta that I park in the building next door because I don't want anybody to see how dilapidated the car has gotten. Right? And the guy and I'm thinking, man, this is incredible. Now, who else is a guest this evening who's not seen Todd? Have you seen how we get paid or how much?
We have it through my company.
Okay, have you seen, though, what you would get paid for marketing it? Let me ask you something. You sit with me. We have a whole system for this, right? It's real simple. Todd's just got to read the words to me. He flips the pages, reads a word. Todd markets me a membership. We mail it into the company, and the next day, Todd, they're going to direct deposit into your checking account, right, at one of the lowest levels in the comp plan. What would you say would be reasonable? The next day, you collect $35 from me and a $10 enrollment fee. What percentage would you say is fair, or what amount? $7. $7? Todd, anybody ever tell you you're a very reasonable man? Here's what prepaid does, folks. And we're going into a transition, so I don't want to confuse anybody starting on November 1st. But you sit down and you go share the business with somebody, and you market right now your very first membership. And they will direct deposit into your checking account the next day $138. That's right. Todd collected 35 and they paid him 138 the next day. He goes out, he markets the next 10 memberships, and they're going to pay him $138 per membership. That's $1,380. Folks, all Todd's doing at this point, let's say he's just marketing the service. This is the first way we get paid. The second way is we have plans for business owners, right? And you just go market to business owners. Dr. Hughes trains a small business in the state of Colorado and group employee benefits. So you can call on companies. This is the second thing that we do. We've got a guy in Colorado that marketed 325 memberships in 1 month to 25 different companies last year. Now think about that. Earlier this year. Think about that. 325 memberships to 25 different companies. Now, they didn't get to know about the opportunity. You're getting to hear the opportunity, how you can make money, but he called on a company. Now you understand he can't go in the company and go, oh, by the way, if you can't stand your job and you'd like to join me in the business, he doesn't get to do that. That's the second way. I was just in Louisiana, and there was a young lady on the front row, and I know she's in group benefits with prepaid. And I said, listen, would you just mind standing up, share your story about what you've done? She stands up, and it blew me away. She marketed 14,000 memberships by herself. Folks, she called on companies, took this membership, presented to groups of employees, and marketed 14,000 memberships. Now, that compensation, keep that number in mind when I show you the comp plan. Here's the third way we get paid, is you get to be the broker. And to me, this is the most exciting opportunity in prepaid because it meets that leverage piece. You know, J. Paul Getty said, I'd rather earn 1% of 100 people's efforts than 100% of my own. How many people, Thomas, if I